Alright, good morning. I'm Aaron Heiser, Maker's Leather Supply, and in today's video we're going to talk about the Courtney wallet. Designed by Doc here at Maker's. His wife's name is Courtney, so he made it for her. Didn't know it was going to be a template at the time, but that's sure what we turned it into. So, this was our December mystery box, which shipped the very first of... Hang on, my computer just went stupid. Well, I'm sure I went stupid, but my computer is showing me how. Yeah. So anyway, this shipped out the first week of January. I realized that it is like the last week of January almost. I am so sorry. I was already a week late getting the video made, and then I got stupid sick and was out for about a week. Like I was sick enough, like my wife wouldn't let me drive. Anyway, I do apologize that this video is so late. The next mystery box that's going to be shipping at the first of this coming in February is an amazing one, and I promise you will not have to wait like this for the video. That being said, I must put out a little bit of a warning, I guess you can say. Today's video is probably going to be full of stupid dad jokes and things like that because I feel really good today. So, sorry. You're not going to like my new microphone now because you're going to want to turn me down. So, alright, so the Courtney wallet, guys. We put a Sam Brown button on it. I really like these little Sam Brown studs. They're fun. But if you don't like the Sam Brown, that's more than fine. You can use, you know, a regular snap. We did put a locks fastener on one, and honestly, it's kind of overpowering. It's a little bit too big for one, in my opinion. But some people like that, I guess. But on the inside here, it's got several pockets. It's got that pocket right there, and then that pocket right there. It's got a little zippered coin pouch right there, and then there's your big main little pocket right there. He did create it to also have a wrist loop on it, and so that's pretty convenient. This is a really nice one. A lot of the gals that have seen this have really liked how small it is, and it's kind of a on-the-go type thing, as opposed to last month we wanted a huge clutch that we could carry everything in, and now it's got coffee on it probably. All right, so anyway, without further ado, very simple build, doesn't take a lot of leather. You could probably make a lot of this out of scraps. In the mystery box we put, because this is one of the more expensive mystery boxes because we want to put really good leather in it. So we put English bridle in the mystery box. Not everybody got the same color, I don't think. Some people got tan, but we also have a couple of new colors, so we put them out there just so people could see them. One was dark brown and another one was like, I think mahogany. Anyway, so yeah, and then we got a little bag of hardware here to include the little D-ring for the wrist strap and the little clasp for the wrist strap, and then there's a little Sam Brown stud in there and the zipper that we'll use. I will be hand sewing this little project because it doesn't take very long at all, and honestly, just looking at the design of it, I think it's going to be easier to hand sew than it would be to bust out the sewing machine and try to figure out how to sew it on the machine. So, without further ado, I'm going to find something to use as a coaster. This granite stone sure does make my coffee cold quick, so I use a coaster. Alright, so I'm going to bring the camera down so we can see my table and not me. There we go. My table's an absolute mess. I cleaned off just enough room that I could do this little project. Alright, so let's cut out some pieces here. Let's see what's in the this is a template now. It is on our website. If it's not on the website, it will be by the time this video is posted. So we only have a few pieces here, okay? So we have the main zippered pocket piece right there. Okay, says cut one of them out of 2 to 3 ounce. We have the gussets. You're going to cut out 2 of these out of 2 to 3 ounce. The card pockets, you're going to cut out 2 of these from 2 to 3 ounce. And then there's the outside piece. You're going to cut out 1 of these from 4 to 5 ounce. Okay? And there you go. So we're going to start doing that. This is my 4 to 5 ounce piece. This is my 2 to 3 ounce piece. So I'm going to go ahead and follow my rules and cut the corresponding pieces. I will use a scalpel, and I will put a fresh blade in my scalpel before I even start. That way I can get good, accurate cuts and not have to go over everything 4 or 5 times. You know, that old song and dance. I hope everybody's new year is going okay. This is only the second video I've gotten done this year, but I really want to do more videos. We finally have the shop at a point where Doc, is just straight up running things. Him and Janie Sue are taking care of the business aspect of everything, and that really does leave me more time to create and to do video content and stuff like that. So I really appreciate them being able to run everything so that I can do these things. Because honestly, this is my dream job right here. Making things for the fun of it, making things to show people how to make things, stuff like that. All right, so a lot of the time when I have a problem cutting, it's not my cutting instrument, it's this cutting board that I've been using for 15 years or more. It's pretty much seen better days, I reckon you could say. This was rolled up like this in the mystery box, and I'm going to take it and just roll it the other way, put a rubber band around it, so that I can get it to lay a little bit flatter when I go to use it. So Alright, set that aside, set this piece aside because I'm done with it. Now I got to cut out all my other little pieces. Okay. Alright, so I need, well actually, one of my rules of thumb when I've got a piece of leather that maybe there's a flaw or two in it, something like that, I will start with my largest piece and work towards my smaller piece when I'm laying everything out to see how I want to cut it out. The reason I'll do that is because there's nothing worse than cutting out all your small pieces and then realizing you don't have room for your large pieces. Okay? Alright, so here's what I'm going to do. I'm going to put this one here, this one I need 2 of, so the other one will be right there. Then I need 2 of this piece, so they'll be right here and right here. And we should be just fine. Alright, so we've got this elongated area here, and I'm going to cut it out in just a moment, but we'll do that separately than just cutting out the outline here. We'll go ahead and cut out all the big pieces first, and then we'll worry about that little detail. Oops, got away from my template there. I will go ahead while the template's laid on it nice and square and where it ought to be. I'm going to just mark that area. Okay, so I'm going to use my, it's just a scratch all, just a pokey thing. And mark it. Okay, we'll cut that out in a moment. Now, alright, so I have a little flaw right here. I don't know if you can see it in the camera. A little bitty flaw right there. So I'll cut one below that flaw and one above that flaw, and that will be how I get around that. I see people on social media and stuff like that, and I listen to leather workers, and they complain about leather sides not being perfect. And don't get me wrong, I've seen some that are so terrible that, like, what am I supposed to do with this? But I've also seen some that, like, okay, you're talking about a beautiful side of leather that has, like, a couple of blemishes in it, and you're saying that, oh, I can't use this. Well, if you can't, then honestly, I have to question how much of a leather worker you really are. All the leather that I use in my videos, my projects, stuff like that, it's rejects from our store. It's stuff that I wouldn't even send to somebody else. And yeah, thus far, I've never really had anybody notice. I use a lot of, belly cuts and rough areas, and stuff like that. And here's the deal, like, okay, yes, you have 25 square feet of leather, and maybe a couple of those feet are not usable for whatever reason on a side. Well, you have to learn how to work around that. Like, let's say it's one that has fat rolls in it. Yeah, okay, fat rolls are a little bit annoying, I get it, but as a fat guy, I mean, you know, don't throw me away, you know, I'm usable. So, you know, what people don't realize is if you took something and you tooled across those fat lines and you were just doing a whole floral carving or something, like, you won't even see those anymore. They're just gone. Same case, I mean, I've made plenty of notebooks and stuff that I use those to my advantage, because when you antique across those fat rolls, man, it puts nice grain and lines in it and everything. And while I understand that's not everybody's market or something like that, it still doesn't mean that the leather's not usable. So I will now get off my soapbox, but you know. All right, so there we are. I'm now done with that 2 to 3 ounce piece, as long as I don't screw anything up. All right, so now I'm going to go in here and I'm going to cut out that little middle area. Y'all have seen me do this a lot of times, and you're going to see it again. I'm just going to grab a punch that looks about the right size. This is a saddler's punch. It just has a number 6 on it. Yeah. So it's a number, or maybe it's a number 9. I'm sorry, it's the number 9. Other way. So grab the number 9 here, and it's about, I don't know, 5/16 or so. And I'm going to poke or punch 2 holes at the ends of this. Okay. Then I'm going to take me a straight edge. And I'm going to line it up on those 2 holes. And as opposed to doing like, okay, I could put it down here where I can see the 2 holes and then I can cut this line here. As opposed to doing that, I'm actually going to move it up the opposite way there. And I'm going to make it to where I can just barely see those 2 holes. And when I cut that, that's actually going to, at least for me, there's a million ways to do this, that's actually going to help me to make this look right. Okay, because when I cut it out, I don't want to see that there were 2 holes and then lines cut. I want to see one nice big oval shape. Okay, so here we go. Now when you get to the other end, be very, very careful not to overcut your hole. Okay, you just want to go to that hole and stop. If you overcut it, shame on you. All right, so that's looking pretty good. Now I'll spin it around and we're going to do that one more again. Okay, I've got it where I can just barely see those holes sticking out from under there. And I'm going to take my knife and I'm going to run it in between. And then I'm going to make sure I don't overcut my second hole by going the opposite direction there. There we go. Now just a little bit of cleanup, and that's a pretty decent looking cut. There we go. It looks like one big oval, not like 2 holes with lines cut in between them. Okay, so now we're already ready to assemble this bad boy. All right. There are a couple of things I guess we could do. We need to burnish a couple of areas. All right. When it's put together, this will have the zipper sewn in it, and it'll be like this. There will be a pocket on each side of it, like so. Okay. These are going to be the gussets, and then the other piece is going to wrap all the way around it all. Okay. So what that means is the tops of these should be burnished right here. Okay. So I'm going to grab me a small edger. Ron's Montana edger number 2. Actually, one layer of 2 to 3 ounce. I'm going to use a number 1. I I usually would use my Barry King edgers, but we're having a hard time getting some of his tools in right now. He's pretty busy. So we've been waiting on him for a while, and that means that someone asked if they could purchase my demo set of tools, which means that they're the ones that came off my desk. So I don't have any Barry King edgers to show you today. Okay. Alrighty, so I'm gonna burnish those right quick. I'm gonna grab my Ron's Edge Rub and my canvas over here. Shake up my Ron's a little bit. It hadn't been used in a while. A little dab will do us. And I'll just rub that real quick with the canvas and kind of smooth it out, make it look nice. One more time. There we go. Okay, I'm going to set those to the side for a moment. I need to sew the zipper into this. Let me turn my heater off right quick. I don't need it. That's more for Janie when she's here. I don't like heaters. I don't like heat. I'm fat. Alright, so here we have a dark brown. This is called a dress zipper. Okay. And obviously my zipper is too long for the project here. That's okay. What I'm going to use is the natural ends here where it stops when you close it. Okay, and then when I'll sew this zipper into the project, and then after it's sewn in, I'll simply clip off this back end, and that stitching will hold that zipper down there to the point that I don't have to worry about it going anywhere or doing anything. Okay, so I'm going to take some of my high-speed double-sided tape here. And I'm going to set it just along the edges of the little gap I did for my zipper. I wonder where my scissors went. I'm going to hire a security guard for nights around my office so that other people that might use my space put my tools back. All right. Set that right there. I am going to make sure that it's not wider than my zipper is, because I don't want that tape exposed, so that when I close this piece up, I don't want it to stick to itself, you know? Like basically it would stick my pocket closed, thus defeating the purpose of having a pocket. Alright, so we'll pull the paper off the tape here. We'll lay our zipper very carefully down it, okay? So I'm just going to take, and I want to take right where the zipper is closed there, and I want that to be right at the very end of my opening. Alright, so then I'll very lightly press the zipper on there so that I can flip it over and see if it's straight or not, and it never is, of course. There we go. And I just want the zipper to be, you know, right down the center of that cut. I mean, there's no reason to have it where it's not in the middle. Okay. And there we go. Now I am going to hand sew just around that little oval. Okay. I am going to use the more traditional, or to me, more traditional, I'm going to use an awl and a overstitch wheel for this. Just because I hadn't done it in a while and I really want to make sure I'm staying up on my game here. So I like to make 8 stitches per inch. So I'm going to grab my number 8 wheel here. This is an antique Gompf hack barth. I got it from Bruce Johnson. He refurbishes old leather tools and stuff and puts them back into service. And if you're looking for tools that nobody makes anymore, or maybe nobody makes a good one anymore, he's got them. So anyway, I got a whole set of these Gompf wheels from Bruce, and I love them. They, like, it's part of my dream set of tools to have these. So I'm going to set me a ruler up here just to help me keep my line straight. And I'm just going to run my little overstitch wheel right down it. And then I'll do the same on the other side, and then I'll just kind of fudge a few in between to connect the two. There we go. I really like using an overstitch wheel and an awl. I don't know why, I really like it. I'm pretty decent with it, and it makes me feel good. So there's no reason to choose one method of hand sewing over another other than your personal preference, really. And then sometimes the mission will dictate, maybe you have to do it a certain way because you can't lay your project down on a table or something like that flat. Maybe you're building something on the fly, and you can only use an awl if you're way up here in the air as opposed to chisels and things like that. Alright, so now that I've got that up, I'm going to grab my most favoriteest awl, and I'm going to grab my piece of rubber here. When you're using an awl, or pricking irons even, or anything that's designed to go through the leather, I highly advise having a piece of rubber or something like that. You don't want to do this type stuff over your normal cutting board because you're just going to damage your blade, whether that'll be instantaneous or over time. It's just not, it's not good for the blade, okay? Now I'm going to take and poke all my holes here. My holes are at approximately a 30-degree slant, okay? This is a diamond-shaped blade, okay? Shaped like a diamond. And when you're hand stitching, if you put your diamonds, just straight with each other like that, then your stitching will actually look like it zigzags. But if you cant them over just a little bit, for some reason in the world of physics, that makes the stitches run straight. Okay? So I've got it at a little bit of an angle here. This is a Barry King awl handle that I've had for a long time, and it has a flat spot on it. Okay? And that flat spot serves many, many purposes. Biggest purpose is I can lay it on my desk and it's not going to roll off, and I don't have to worry about my feet if I'm wearing flip-flops. But the other thing I do is I orientate the blade in it when I first chuck the blade into it, to where if I put that flat spot right there on the meaty portion of my my palm, then I know that it's at the perfect angle to go down and poke all these holes, and they'll be consistent. Before I got an awl handle with a flat spot in it, I had to do a lot of rotating and figuring and looking, and now, I could almost do this blindfolded if I could see where the awl was going to poke. So, alright, so I'm going to go down here and I'm going to poke all these holes, and there's no need for you to have to watch it or to listen to me while I do it. So I'm going to pause the camera, and when I come back, we'll do a little bit of hand stitching. See you soon. Alright, so here we are. We are ready to hand sew. Let me bring it up some here. Got my big stitching clam that I made. This one's more of a, let's see, I think this one's the English style clam. It's big. It goes all the way to the floor. It's held together right here with a screw, and then on this one I tried something fun and made a little cam in here that if I squeeze this, it'll open the jaws. I'm not sold on it, but it works well. I don't know. I haven't perfected the design yet. I still want to do some work before I say that, oh yeah, I love this thing. I know I could love this thing. So anyway, we're going to get to stitching. Here I have some of our main thread company 0.030 size, which is when you're looking at comparing that to other threads, it's about a 207 in machine thread, and then on millimeters, it would be about a 0.08, or sorry, 0.8 millimeter thread. So I'm going to thread up my 2 needles here. I've got 2 John James harness needles, size 1/0. And I really love the John James needles because they don't break. Lots of needles out there break, especially right around the eye there. What I love about John James needles is I don't break them, but I do lose them. So I would much rather that I have to get new needles because I lost them than because I broke them. Alright, so hand sewing. This is called the saddle stitch, and what we're doing is we put 1 needle on each end of the same thread, okay? I put it through this first hole and then I pull them evenly. Alright, now I will go through the finished side first. This is the finished side because it's the pretty side of the leather. This is the inside of the pocket, so that's obviously not the finished side. So I'm going to go through the finished side of the leather first. I'm going to pull it all the way till it's a little snug. I'm going to hold it up and out of the way, and then I'm going to put the other needle in the exact same hole. Okay? And that's it. That's the down and dirty of my saddle stitch. The biggest thing I can tell you about saddle stitching is every single stitch you should do the exact same thing. You should pull it at the same angle. You should pull it the same tautness. Yeah, and as long as you are consistent with every single stitch, your stitch will look great. But if this time I pull it up this way and then next time I pull it down this way, those 2 stitches are going to look different and you'll see it. And that's why people don't have consistent stitches. And a lot of that's caused by people not using something to hold their leather while they stitch, not using some sort of a stitching clamp. And I'm not saying this is always the case. I mean, there's plenty of people, like Doc does not use a stitching clamp, and it just burns me up to watch him hand stitch not using a clamp. But honestly, his stitching looks great. So like whatever he does, it works for him, and that's more power to. Like I say every time, is like there's a million ways to do this, and if you found a way that you can do great work and it looks right, then go for it, man. So anyway, I'm going to be stitching along here for probably about 15 minutes or so, and there's once again no reason for you to have to sit there and listen to me babble while I do it. I don't know any good stories or jokes to tell at this point in the video, but you know, maybe I'll think of something before too long. So I'm going to stitch all the way around this zippered area, and when I get back to my first stitches, I'm just going to go back across the first 2 stitches again and just stitch as if they weren't already there, and that's how it locks in. So I'll pause the video. When I come back, that'll all be done. Alright folks, here we are, all nice and stitched up. Yeah, so now, like I said, I'm just going to take and trim off these little areas here that are already being held down by my stitching. So these 2 little tails here, and then the end of the zipper back here. Be a little easier if I had my scissors, but again, who knows who used my office last. So, alright, so there we go. We are ready. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to put a little bit of glue right along there, right? And then we're going to seal that closed and just run a quick stitch line right down there. I'm not worried about prettiness or anything like that, because the idea that will never in its life be seen. So I just have to find my bottle of glue. Found it. Alright, I could use a piece of double-sided tape, I reckon, but I'm going to use the glue. This stuff is still super duper thick like it was in the last video, because as a matter of fact, it was exactly where I left it after the last video. So I still haven't added any to it to thin it out a little bit. There we go. All right, I'm gonna let that set up for a second while I kind of gather my my stuff, I guess you can say. It's real easy once we go to put this thing together. Okay, now that this thing, once that's that zippered area there is folded in half and sewn, then we're going to apply the front and back little pockets to it, and then we're going to put this whole thing together like this. I mean, we're 20 minutes from being done with this thing already. Very quick and easy project. So yeah. Let's see here. I don't know if I have my lighter on me. Doc showed me a neat little trick with our glue the other day. So when you have a big glob of it, like right there, you know, it takes a really long time for that to set up. Man, he sets it on fire for just a couple of seconds. When he blows it out, it's ready to go. So I do have some of my matches over here for my pipe. Don't try this at home, kids. All right, so it makes an old nasty mess, but it's also ready to go. So we're gonna stick it together here. And again, the stitch I'm about to create, I'll never see it again after today. So I'm not really worried about a nice 8 stitches per inch, matches everything else we do today. So I'm gonna grab one of my much larger stitching wheels, like a 5. And I'm gonna run this stitch line right quick and in a hurry. Save us a lot of time, okay? Now I'll go ahead with my awl here, poke these holes right quick, and then I'm going to hand stitch them just like I did that top portion, okay? So, again, no need to make you watch me do the exact same thing you already watched me do. I will pause the camera so that we can come back together and do the next part. All right, so there we are, a little quick 5 stitches per inch there, done. Now, I'm going to take these and I'm going to make sure that the edge that I burnished is facing up where the zipper is, and I'm just going to glue them to each side of this thing, creating the other pockets. Okay, I'm not worried about the bottom part because they're just card pockets. The coin part of it got sewn across the bottom because I want it sealed off so that whatever you put in there doesn't fall out. Okay, so again, I'm just going to use my super duper thick glue to add those 2 sides to the sides. Please don't be like me. Don't let your glue set up like this and get all crazy thick and be too lazy to walk across the street and go get your stuff to fix it. If it does get that way, you can use thinner and make it thinner. It's not a problem. Just actually do it. Again, mine's across the street and I just hadn't thought to bring it with me when I walk over there one day. All right. We'll let that set up for just a moment here. Not too long, as a matter of fact. Let's just burn it. That was a lot of fun. Again, this is not something that I highly recommend or think that is even safe, but it works and it's quick. All right, so I'm just going to line these up with the zippered part here. Press them on. I didn't glue the bottoms, just the sides, because it's okay for a card to fit down into that. Okay. There we go. There's one. And another one. So, just like that. Okay. Now, we're going to glue something else. These little gussets. Decide which way you want to orientate your zipper. Okay, and it doesn't really matter which way you orientate it, but I do highly recommend that the top of it be facing where you're going to have your lanyard. Okay, reason being, I just really think that, you know, if it's that way, I think there's less of a likelihood that you might lose something. Because even then, if it's dangling like this, even if it's only halfway zipped closed, it's doing pretty good. Okay? And the exact opposite spectrum there, if the lanyard was on this end and this was open just a little bit, you know, things are more likely to fall out when you're dangling it from your little lanyard. That's just kind of how I think. After all the years I've done this, I try to, you know, make things where they work, even though most people don't probably even realize that, oh, that's why that's the way it is. So, okay, I am going to glue these to the front side of this, okay, and they only fit one way. All right, they are they're a little bit taller than they are wide, so that's the way that they fit. Man, look at all that. Got to get this glue fixed. I think I need an assistant to do stupid things like keep my jar, my glue jar good. The height of my laziness in my career, I guess. I need someone to keep my glue jar good for me. Oh well. I would ask Janie to do these things for me, and she might even do them, but she'll let me know how lazy I am while she does them. And I don't need a reminder. I already know. Alright. Now, when we go to put this thingy together, first thing we need to do is, I'm going to go ahead and put my little Sam Brown snap on here. It's a lot easier to do while this thing's laying flat than after, you know, we put it together. Excuse me. Positioning of it is not just ridiculously important. We do want it in the middle as far as right to left is concerned, and then I'm going to bring it down 3/8 of an inch or so from the top. Okay? So, I am going to move this so that I can use my punching surface. Alright, I'll get out my handy dandy centering ruler here, and I'll bring it down an estimated 3/8 to 1/2 inch or so from that top there. And that's where I'm going to poke my hole. I'm going to look at my little Sam Brown stud. Where is it at? There it should be. And just kind of trying to figure out, okay, what size of a hole am I going to need to make for this? This is the type with a screw back. These usually come with a screw back or just a pressure fit, hit it on, make it stick type back. I personally prefer screw backs because I could always drop a little bit of super glue or something in there as I screw it together, and then that will help hold it closed. But to each their own. I'm not saying one of them is any better than the other. I'm just saying that's what I normally go for. Alright, so I just used a real small hole punch, just a small one. This is the second video that we've used our new microphone on, and I learned how to turn it up a little bit. That was one of the comments on the last video, is that maybe it was a little bit too quiet, as opposed to my previous microphone was way not too quiet. And anyway, so I learned how to turn it up just a little bit. Turns out that's what the button that says gain on it means. I'm not an AV guy. I don't know. I really have no business having a YouTube channel other than I have this particular set of skills I've learned over the years that I'd like to spread and teach. All right, while this is flat, I'm going to go ahead and edge that little area right there. I'm not worried about burnishing it yet. I'll do that later. But it is easier to edge while it's flat. So, there we go. Alright, so I'm going to go ahead and stick these other two pieces on here right quick. Okay, and I'm going to stick them to where they go to the inside. Just like that. Okay. Now, we are at the point, I'm going to take and bend these back a little bit. And we're at the point where we're going to do our final assembly. Now you can take and stitch all the way around this thing, you know, as you're putting it together, but for the essence of saving time and stuff like that, I'm just going to show you how it was designed, which is we're just stitching right there and right there. We're not stitching all the way around the flap or around the this piece right here. Okay. All right, so here's how this works though. These little flaps here, let me bring it back down here. These little flaps here are going to be right under the curve of that right there. All right. Oops, I'm sorry. I have this completely upside down. Wow. Okay, more coffee, Aaron, more coffee. All right, so these are going to be just at the tip right here. Okay, and you can go ahead and glue them in, not a problem if you want. But I'm not going to glue them in because I'm going to do it. I'm going to put the back side to the back of it first. All right. Now here's where this thing is slightly adjustable. Okay, this whole pattern, you can make it to where you could really put a lot of stuff in this thing and make it really fat. And if you want to do that, not a problem. You just need to move this up just a little bit. It'll create a little bit more room down here, and that'll allow this gusset to come out more when there's a bunch of stuff stuffed in it. Okay. Yeah. So I am going to put it where I want it, and I'm going to mark where the bottom of the interior piece is there, okay? And I'm just going to mark it with my fingernail right on the very edge there, like that. Okay? I'll do the same over here. Now, I can see my little fingernail marks. They're right there and there. I'm going to put my ruler across them just to make sure that it kind of draws a straight line across this project, and it's not, you know, if my ruler was like that, then I would obviously know that, hey, I didn't have that thing in there straight. A little bit difficult to see, so what I'm going to do is I'll just take my pen, or my sewing needle here, and I'm just going to make my mark a little better with it. Just a small scratch. 'Tis but a scratch. It's just a flesh wound. All right, now I need to glue this piece just on the edges in there, just like that. Okay, and then we'll go ahead and sew this line and this line. Then we'll wrap the front around and glue these two edges on, and we'll sew that line and that line. And then we're going to wrap this bad boy over the top, mark where it needs to have a hole for its Sam Brown snap, and make that happen. And what do you know? We made a Courtney. Isn't that awesome? Okay, so once again, we get to complain about our glue jar. I don't know if I've mentioned, but my glue's really thick, and I'm lazy, and I haven't gotten the thinner to put in it yet. And anyway, I think I might have made mention of it earlier. I don't know. All right, so a little bit on the back of that. And then I want to be really careful. Like, I'm going to hold this up to those lines that I made, because I don't want to accidentally, where are the lines I made? Holy crap, let's find them. It's like they disappeared on me. There they are. You know what? Just for the sake of it, I would sure hate to put this in the wrong place. Grab a silver pen or something and make that line a little better. There we go. All right, now what I was trying to say was I'm going to hold this thing up to it, and I'm only going to glue the width of this, because otherwise I would see glue in my finished project, and I don't want that. Call me picky. Hard to charge somebody a bunch of money for something when they can see that it was glued together first. There we go. Okay. And now we want to make sure that we've got it in there the right way. Okay, so the bottom of this is going to be, you know, there, so that the zipper is up here towards the rounded top. Okay. I'm just going to set her in, just like so. And then we're going to stitch it. I'm going to open this zipper about halfway so that the bulk of it's not here hurting my stitch line. It will be difficult to sew around that if it's just there, you know. Okay. So now I'm going to use my overstitch wheel again, and I'm going to do those stitches. All right. Now, since this is getting a little bit thick, I'm going to move down. I'm going to use a 7. All right, instead of a number 8, I'm going to use a number 7, which is 7 stitches per inch, of course. Just because, like I said, since it's getting kind of thick, it'll look right. Use my ruler here because, again, I'm only going to want my stitches. You know, I want them straight, and I'm only going to want them where this object is, and not all over the rest of the material, the rest of the project. So there's that side. And that side. Good to go, but I'm going to add one more little stitch area, or one more stitch on one side so that it evens them out and they look the same height on both sides. So I'll just make a little mark there. Get my punching board back up here, or my rubber mat here. Okay, and I'm just going to do the exact same thing I did before, and I'm going to create stitching holes. Okay, except now there's 7 stitches per inch, not 8. So I think that piece is like 2 1/4 inches, so there we go. We'll do like 2 less stitches. All right, folks. Really not a reason to make you watch me do this again. So what I'm going to do is I'll pause the camera, and all I'm doing is I'm going to stitch that line right there and that line right there. Sorry, there we go. That line right there and that line right there. And when I come back, we'll fold these back and glue that to it and stitch that area and that area. Simple as that. Okay? All right, real quick, folks. I've forgotten a very important step. So as you're putting this side together, don't forget, this is the side that where the zipper's closed, we want our little D-ring. Okay, so we need to take a little piece of scrap or something. That one's 4 to 5. That was kind of thick for holding on the D-ring. We'll use a scrap of our 2 to 3 for that. This little piece right here is almost right, so we'll trim it down a little bit, and that's what we're going to use. We just need a little piece that's about 1 inch long or so, and then the width of the inside of the D-ring there. Totally forgot this. I apologize. I did the same thing on the carry-all clutch last month. I totally forgot to put the entire wristlet part on there because, well, it's one of those, just as you're finished, you look around your bench, you're like, oh, wait, those pieces, they were supposed to go on there. All right, I need to thin this down just a tiny bit. All right, bueno. Now, real quick, I'm just going to spread that seam just a little bit. As a matter of fact, I can even put it, see where that one's still open right there? I'm going to slide it right in there after I put some glue on it and stuff. And then I'll just incorporate it into the same stitching that we were already doing and stitch it right up. Okay? So, a little bit of glue here. Ogre snot. Oops, I'll have to put that back on in a second. It's okay. All right, a little bit of glue on the outside here so that it sticks in where we're going to put it. Okay, now we're done with the glue for a moment. Put the D-ring back on it. Fold it closed. Cut off that little tail there. Stick it in there and make it part of the stitch line. Okay, again, this is of course easier, you know, if you do it as you're going, but I'm an idiot. I forgot. I'm sorry. Happens. Boom. Just like that. Okay. There should be. Now I've got to, of course, take my stitching awl and redo just a couple of little holes there because now they have an extra layer to go through. Bueno. All right, back to our regular scheduled programming. I'm going to continue the stitch. All right, folks, got that all sewn up. Looks good and pretty right there. Okay. One way you can, if you're using an overstitch wheel and irons like I am, you can run that overstitch wheel back over your stitches once they're completed, and it really uniforms them up nicely and makes them pretty. Just to show you what I'm talking about, this is the stitch I have not run the overstitch wheel back over. this is the one that I have. And I'm not too sure how well the video shows that detail, but there's a lot of difference between those two stitches. Same with sewing machine, you know, folks ask all the time about sewing machines. They're like, how come the back of the stitch is never as pretty as the front of the stitch? Well, because the front of the stitch is the business end. You run a overstitch wheel over the back of those stitches and they'll look just as pretty as the front. All right, so on Aaron's stupid human tricks of the day. All right, so we're gonna fold these little bad boys in half, just like that. And then we're gonna roll that over to it there, and we're gonna glue those suckers into place. And then we're gonna stitch that. Okay, that's it. There we go. All right. So, I'm going to fold those back nicely, and then I'm just going to worry about this one side at a time. If I try to do both sides at once, I can assure you that I'm going to screw it up. So, one side at a time, I'm going to stick that on up at the top corner here. I know you can't see because of my hands, I'm sorry. And I'll hold it with this finger while I reach in there with the other finger and I push out the bottom part until they line up here on the edge. Then I'll stick them together. Okay. Wonder if I have one of my little clampy things here. I have a whole thing of clips somewhere. Let me grab a couple. I love binder clips. And that'll help. The glue's still a little bit wet. I didn't burn it and I didn't wait long enough, so glue's a little bit wet. So I'm just going to clamp it into place until it sets up a little bit for me while I do the other side there. And sometimes, depending on the leather you're using, these things can have a little bit too much pressure and they can leave a mark on your leather. So I just make sure where I've got them clamped will actually be within my stitch line there, and then you'll never see it. So. Alright, so the other side, same thing. I'm going to clamp the top together here. And then I'll reach in there with my finger and push out that bottom part until it lines up with the edge. Clamp it. Alright. There should be. Now, again, I'm going to sew this, then I'm going to fold that thing over and poke my hole for my Sam Brown button. And other than a little bit of fancy edge work, this bad boy is going to be done. We like it done. Alright, now, you may say, well, how are you going to punch these holes because you got stitching underneath here? Not a problem. We're going to put it right over the edge of my rubber mat. Okay, and that way we can punch right through into the rubber mat, won't touch the bottom part at all. But I do need to draw or roll my stitch line on there first. Once again, I'm going to use that number 7 that we pulled out earlier. Okay. And then I'm going to go ahead and reclamp this side because that glue I know is still not completely stuck. And I'll do the same thing on the other side. And then once again, I'm going to stitch those suckers up. Move it over to this side of my stitching rubber mat here. Set my ruler up here. People ask me too, I totally forget to mention it sometimes, you know, how far in my stitch lines are. Usually they're just over 1/8 of an inch. You know, I've found that if you try to get them too close to the edge, then the stitching itself will actually like make the edge of your leather kind of, what's the word I'm thinking of? Sorry, my head and my vocabulary are not cooperating. Scalloped. There we go. It would like scallop out the edges because the thickness of the thread would push the edge of the leather out some. So there's no reason to try to get it so close to that edge. If you really want it close to that edge, sew your line and then trim the edge super close to your sewing and you won't have the scallops. Okay? Little tidbit. Alright, so once again, I'm going to poke my holes and I'm going to stitch, and when I come back, this line and this line will both be stitched. Alright, see you in a minute. Alright, so those lines are sewn now. Okay, so now we're ready to see where this thing closes. Real simple. I'm going to push it closed, and then I'm just going to push to create that little bitty indentation right there, and that'll tell me where my hole needs to be punched. Now, if you don't have the special little hole punch for a Sam Brown button, that's okay. What I'm going to do is find a hole punch that is smaller than the the bulb part of this button, but then about the same size as the post of the button. Okay, I'm going to take, and I'm going to punch this hole from the back side of the leather because I want it shaped like with the bevel of the hole punch. I want this shape so that it's easy to push onto there, but then you really do have to pull a little bit harder to get it off. Just because you don't want this thing accidentally coming open, okay? All right, so I see my little area there that I need to punch this hole. I'm just barely gonna tap it through. I don't wanna go too hard because then that bevel on that tool will open that hole up too much. Now, I need to cut a little slot because this is shaped like a keyhole, okay? The hole for a Sam Brown snap is shaped like a keyhole. So I'm going to cut about 1/4 of an inch slot or line from the back again, right there. And so basically I just cut it going towards the bottom of the flap here. Now I'm going to take and push it on there, and what do you know, fits great. All you see is that little brass nipple that you want to see there, and she's pretty. Okay. As far as the main body goes, all I have to do now are just sand my edges, bevel them, and burnish them. And I'm not going to bore you with that, but I need to bore you with something else. We still have to make us the little wrist attachment, right? So we've got our little lobster claw thingy here. I want to make sure that it fits in this little strap I've cut. Yes, I believe this is a 1/2 inch. Let's check. Yes. So it's a 1/2 inch wide strap is what I'm using here. Okay, you can go ahead and bevel and burnish it if you like. I will do mine later, but again, we're running out of time. I don't want to make you sit here and watch me do the simple little things, as long as you understand that I am going to go back and do them. Now I'm going to go ahead and cut me a little rounded. And length here is a matter of personal preference. Okay, people message me all the time. Oh, how long do you make a shoulder strap? How long do you make this? Well, I don't know. It depends on if I'm making something for my wife or my mother or whatever, because everyone has their own personal preference. Now, the easiest way that I like to do this is I'll put that sucker on there. Okay, I rounded the ends, and then I'm just going to fold it over like that and fold it over like this. That's probably a little bit too big. If I can get my gorilla paw through there, I know my wife can easily let this thing slide out of her hand. So I'm going to shorten it a couple inches here. We're about 1.5 inches, I guess. Alright. Now all I'm going to do is I'm going to punch a hole through all 3 of these layers, and I'm going to throw a brass rivet on there. Okay, you can stitch that if you want to, but I'm going to use a rivet just to use a rivet. So, here's my brass rivets. Okay. I need to put these hole punches away and grab one that's about the right size for my brass rivets. And I'm not going to punch all 3 of these holes at once, okay? I'm not going to drive this one punch all the way through because it will expand that hole way too much due to the beveling of the tool, or the bevel shape of the tool. So I'm going to punch it through 1. Whoop, accidentally went through 2. That's fine. Okay, I'll put that second one down and mark where it went, and then I'll punch that third one there. There we go. So now all 3 of them are punched. I'm going to run my brass rivet through those 3 holes. Maybe I should have used a bigger hole punch. It happens. Should have used a little bit bigger hole punch. I used a 3/32. I probably could have used a 1/8 and it would have worked better. So, let me grab that 1/8. Yeah. There we go. Now it's sliding on there like it oughta. Alright, now I'm going to throw my rivet on there. Use my fancy setting tool to knock the rivet down, and then I'm going to use my ball peen hammer to mushroom it over the... Where is my ball peen hammer? Someone took my ball peen hammer. See what I deal with. Alright. So. Set the washer. Now I need to clip that off. I use this handy dandy clipper here for such a feat. There we go. I heard it fly. Now, I can't find my ball peen hammer, but this has a hammer surface on it, so I'm going to cheat, and I'm just going to do it. I'm sure that was excruciatingly loud. I apologize. So there it is. There's my little wristlet for that. We're done, folks. Again, I'm going to burnish all of these edges, okay? Every exposed edge is going to be sanded and burnished smooth. And yeah, Janie Sue will be using this by the end of the day, I'm sure. All right, so hope you learned something. Hope you had fun. I, again, apologize so much that this video is way overdue. I promise to do the next one ahead of time. So anyway, but until next time, I'm Aaron Heiser, Maker's Leather Supply, and hope you have a wonderful day.